We'll get started. Welcome on the dark, damp day. Looks like we don't have any of our normal visitors, so you all know normal visitors.
We've got
And Neil, I meant our non-media. Oh boy, my bad. You know the drill. If you need to take a break, it's down the hall to the right, and if we need to vacate the building for any reason whatsoever, down the steps, out the door, take a left, and we'll rally around the back of the building. So we haven't had to do that yet, and hopefully won't need to. Let's go ahead and do our introductions.
Chip Boyles, Planning District Commission, and MDO.
Morgan Butler, Southern Environmental Law Center.
Mark Graham, Albemarle County.
And should that have the room as opposed to the agendas we're doing the introductions or not?
There. Okay.
No, I meant usually it shows who's introducing themselves.
Oh, I don't know why that's not on. No, I don't know.
It's not that I need fame, I just wanted to.
I don't know. You're talking about that board?
Yeah.
It is streaming, so I've got to.
Is
Okay,
it streaming?
I won't worry about it.
Okay, it should be streaming. Yeah.
Kristen Saka, City Council.
Hey, Pete, why don't you just introduce yourself real quick?
Pete Borges.
Okay.
Chris Engel, City of Charlottesville. Henry Weinschenk, Express Car Wash Consultant.
All right, the VDOT folks.
Joel Denunzio, VDOT Charlottesville Resident Engineer.
Dave Covington, VDOT 29 Solutions Program Manager.
Lou Hatter, VDOT Communications, and Pinch Hennig for IT.
Al Jones, Charlottesville Residency, VDOT.
And John Lynch, VDOT Culpeper District.
And welcome, Neil. Debbie's not here today. She's recovering from a little surgery, but this is my daughter, Isabella, and she came down for the trip today, as well as some of the media events tomorrow, and I'm happy she did. So let's go ahead and get rolling. Linda is out sick today. So Lou is pinch hitting, and now this is working. Last meeting we had 21 people tune in. Well, meeting before last, since we took our tour on the 9th. 21 people tune in, 25 streams, and 25 average minutes per stream. Still just about the same as it's run for some time now. Inbox a little more crowded than it has been the last few meetings. Most of the comments, 27 emails. This is not going to add up to 27 because some contain more than one comment. The majority of them dealt with traffic signal timing, and we'll talk about that in agenda item 7 a little bit more, just to review what tweaks have been made to some of the traffic signals. There were 2 regarding the location of barrels at that turn from Rio West to 29 North. Those barrels were moved back, I think on 2 different occasions. We tightened them up as much as they could be tightened up. Lane markings on Route 29 northbound south of Rio. I may have been one of those comments, no, not on the inbox, but those did get placed right for the first few days. There was some, I'd say, less than permanent lane markings there. Those did get placed down. They weren't placed earlier because of weather. We may have talked about that at one other meeting, actually. There was some questions about the lane markings on 29 southbound at the Best Buy ramp. Those came right after that ramp opened, and Lou addressed those questions. One suggested adding a left turn lane from Branchlands, another adding a left turn lane from Route 29 south to Fashion Square. We're not adding any left turn lanes at those locations, although we will talk a little bit about the signal timing at 29 southbound Fashion Square when we get to agenda item 7. There was one regarding speeding through the construction zone, and I know Lou and the project have been coordinating with Albemarle County law enforcement, not only about that, but about the U-turn at Berkmar as well. I doubt that we'll see any of that stuff go away, but maybe it'll tamp down a little bit. One suggested adding a pedestrian crosswalk from Forest Lakes to Hollymead, and that's not in the project, to my knowledge. That's not going to be added. One was concerned that the Rio Bridge was being built too quickly, and if you read the comment, whoever made it was really not aware of the work that had been taking place at night leading up to the construction of the bridge, and had what were excellent questions had not that work been done in the evenings. And Lou responded and explained that indeed the work this person was talking about had been completed at night leading up to the project. It is one of the few times you'll see anybody complain about VDOT doing something too quickly, but Lou handled that very well. One requested a permanent gravel parking area beneath the new Berkmar Bridge. In other words, just to leave that in place, and I think we've talked about that a couple times. You know, Lane Corman, on behalf of VDOT, has a permit that says all that material has to be removed. So absent someone other than VDOT working with them to modify that permit, then that's what they'll do. They'll remove that material. The permit is held by Lane Corman, and a modification of that permit would have to be coordinated by someone else with Lane Corman. And that would require some engineering work to do, because it's part of the one of the permits. I think the key one is probably the one with the Corps of Engineers, the wetlands permit. One inquired about, and I actually think more than one person has asked this question, maybe only one person wrote in, about that temporary signal at Berkmar, temporary signal and crossover. And I think Dave and I expected people to like that a lot after it went in, but it comes out when the project opens. So that signal won't stay. And then one person wrote in about adding some open for business signs, and those two message boards were added north and south of the project.
So before we move on, the crosswalk between Forest Lakes and Hollymead, there is a crosswalk in that general vicinity, right? As part of the
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the question actually was a pedestrian crosswalk right at
Timberwood.
Timberwood.
Yeah, at least that's the county also got a call.
I thought it was Town Center.
Ours, the call we had was at Timberwood, because they wanted to be able to cross by the Forest Lakes food line over into Hollymead.
Maybe that's what the person was implying then in the.
We do have the crosswalk in the plans that will be
Right.
constructed at North Hollymead
Right.
at the signal there.
Okay, Luke, go on to the provide input page. Had some activity after being dormant for a long time. There were a rash of complaints about trucks and activities of certain drivers on Rio Mills Road, Earlysville Road, and Advanced Millers Road. I think we've got that under control, and I know Dave had some conversations with Lane Corman, who talked to their subcontractors. So I haven't heard anything recently about that. Three folks wrote in and didn't see much value in the Berkmar project. There was one complaint about lane closures on Route 29 after 6 a.m. That was a couple of weeks ago, and Lane Corman was late in getting lanes open and was assessed a pretty heavy lane closure fee for not getting that traffic control up in time, and, you know, there's no excuses made. They just simply got out ahead of themselves and took them longer to get out of the road than expected. There was one about some questions about the signing at 250-29, and again, that was addressed. Just that also came in shortly after the new ramp opened. One regarding signal timing at 29th, and we'll talk about that in agenda item 7. And 2 people wrote in and said we need a bypass. The hotline didn't get any calls, but Chris Reed's phone got a couple. One was regarding dust control on Rio Mills Road, and Chris talked directly to his folks at Lane Corman about that. And one media inquiry, there might have been more than one. I know Chris got one, Lou got one, I got a phone call about reports of truckers walking off the Rio GSI project. And the only thing I can tell you is I don't know anything about that, and that's something that in Lane Corman's bailiwick, I don't know that we heard. Seems like one day we all got a phone call, and I haven't heard any more about it since. So I don't know what to say. I presume trucks are still out there and still working. So they were when I drove through this morning. That is a little more activity on input from the public, which is good over the last month. Any questions about that? All right. Report on panel feedback. Just as a reminder, the June 9th meeting was suspended for the project tour, which is really, I enjoyed it. I hope those of you that were able to go on it enjoyed it. It was a nice day to just see Best Buy. We drove through there. We drove through Rio. We did good with our time, and Kristen said, hey, how about running over to Berkmar, which we did, and we were able to get out and kind of look over the work there a bit. And then we chit-chatted a little outside the bus there in Fashion Square's parking lot, looked at the construction. So it was a worthwhile day. But since our last meeting, some have asked about the panel members have asked about timing at Woodbrook and Fashion Square Drive, and we'll talk about that in agenda item 7. There was an issue about some subcontractor equipment and vehicles being parked in areas that were off of the easements, and I think within 24 hours we got that corrected. That was a legitimate beef, and those vehicles were moved. There was an issue that we talked about yesterday, confirming the extension of the left turn storage at Woodbrook and 29th Place. And our March 17th meeting, we talked about that a little bit. Remember, we said it would be the result of a traffic analysis or a minimum of 50 feet. And the Woodbrook storage is being extended 50 feet. The 29th Place storage is going to be extended 75 feet. And that is a full 50 feet, full 75 feet, and then the taper. So that includes the full width, the full length, I should say, of the additions to those 2 storage lanes. And I know Dave looked at the plans, I looked at the plans, just to make sure we hadn't misinterpreted something anywhere, and that does show on the plans as it should. So any questions about those? All right, items for the next meeting, or Pete? Chip?
No thanks.
I don't really, well, I guess it's kind of an item. It was a question that somebody asked me. There hasn't been much any construction yet on Hillsdale.
Right.
But to make sure that even though it's a city project, that the Hillsdale news gets put out publicly with the other updates.
Yes, it will. We'll continue to update, just like we've been updating the other projects.
Yeah.
And we've been updating Hillsdale, we just haven't had any construction to update.
But to the public, you know, those things that go out.
Yes. The last word I had is that city expects to give the contractor notice to proceed on June the 30th, and the contractor is currently planning on actively starting work July 7th?
Within that.
Within that first week period.
Well, the question I got was, and I can't confirm it because I couldn't remember if I had seen it and I never got around to going back and
Okay.
checking, but it was somebody who did get a notice from the city about the stakeholder meeting,
Yes.
but didn't ever see it on the other thing. And so I don't know if it would have been an update or not, if that was just invitation only, or the meetings and things like that as part of that process.
Okay. That notice just went out about the stakeholder meeting, didn't it? I believe.
There was, well, the city put out a news release last week. It's on the 29 Solutions webpage on the news and updates page.
Okay.
We linked it on there. And I know it's on the city website.
Yeah.
Well,
I linked it off of
yeah, you know what?
It's
Had
somebody
we,
who lives at Woodbrook, and he gets the 29 notices, but it wasn't on one of those. And he just wanted to make sure that Hillsdale things were going to be noticed on those.
they will be. The answer is yes,
That's all I
they
need.
will be.
It
They
was
will.
included in the project newsletter that we sent out yesterday.
Okay. Good.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
talked to him before that.
Yeah, and had we been meeting June the 9th and had those dates, we would have been covering those they're actually in this update, but a couple of them are looking back at the community information meeting maybe and the stakeholders. There was a stakeholders meeting and a community meeting.
Right.
I can't keep track of all the different ones, but the answer is yes.
Thank you.
We're going to make sure that happens.
Thanks.
Henry? Okay. All right. In terms of our percent completes, Luke, you can flip to the next one there. As far as Rio goes, making good progress. We reported about 45% complete of the work there in the intersection itself. On Route 29 widening, we're still waiting to finish the gas line relocation and the phase 1 grading, although there's been a lot of grading completed up there. Phase 2 still running a bit ahead of schedule at 35% complete. At Berkmar, still going at a good gallop. We still need to finish some of the work south of the river, but the roadway construction south of the river has advanced, still advancing ahead of schedule. Some cleanup work to be done on the utility relocations that should get wrapped up pretty soon. Hillsdale, we're ready to convert this box to start talking about construction activities. The Route 29 250 Best Buy ramp, even though the road is open and the ramps are open, the last schedule we had actually should cut off about right there, is that they anticipate being complete with all of the punch list items by July 2nd.
Except the paint. The stain.
Pardon me?
Except the stain.
Except what?
The stain on the walls.
Except the stain on the wall. Yeah, the stain on the walls is not
It's later.
part of this project. That's actually going to be done under Lane Corman's contract. So that'll be later. And there will be at the end of this contract, when it closes out, the VDOT Culpeper District construction management folks will have to figure out what the assessed fees are for being late. So,
Phil, before we move on,
Yeah.
I know I gave you this information on Monday. Speed at which we're moving here is already outdated. Rio is actually probably considerably further than 45%.
Right.
Because of the work done.
Yeah.
Phase 3 gas main relocation will be wrapping up next week, and the Berkmar utility relocations will
Be wrapping up
this morning.
Oh, we're concluded this morning. Good deal. Good.
Couple of
Well,
days.
better better that than being ahead of ourselves. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Very good. Yeah, I continue to be pleased overall with the progress out there. It really is. It really is something to see on all the projects. I mean, you know, while Rio accelerated dramatically, it really hasn't been at the expense of the other projects. They are continuing well. I was really impressed with the amount of grading that had been done up on 29 widening, driving through there this morning. That, you know, you can start to see that taking shape and what it's going to look like. All righty, Dave, if there aren't any questions on the percent completes, let Dave take us through the project update.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Phil just mentioned 29250 interchange project is still moving forward, very, very near completion. But they're working on punch list items, and so what's our punch list? Our punch list is all the items that we've tracked during the construction of the project that need to be repaired or fixed in some manner. You know, if there's something missing, bolts missing or something like that, that's our punch list. So we're working through that list right now. Also general site cleanup, you know, they had a storage area that has to be cleaned up and restabilized before they leave the site. Some of those punch list items that were worked on this week, expansion joints in various foundations, so, you know, concrete contracts and expands, so if you don't have an expansion joint, it'll crack. Some curb cracks, they put in curb, they run a piece of equipment over it, they damage it, they have to come back and fix it before they leave. Minor cracking in the barrier walls, just surface cracking, it's aesthetic. They had some electrical wiring and cleanup to do on that wiring for the signal poles or the traffic signals. There were a couple areas where they had some low spots that were ponding water, so there was some drainage repair work to be done, both on 29 and 250.
We could test those this morning.
Yeah, all week, well, last couple days, yeah. Shoulder grading and completing the pavement markings throughout the project, making sure they were all in good shape.
Dave's nicer than I am. He's kinder than I am. All of that should have been done by May the 21st. I mean, that's the long and short of it. Should have been done by May 21st, no matter how small of an item it is. So these are the folks that are going to be building Hillsdale. So you might want to tune up your management staff there a little bit. And
I'm kinder than you in this meeting.
we're looking, yeah, he's kinder than me in front of you. That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, no question about it, it should have been done.
It should have been done. I mean, it should have been done.
Okay, so Pete, I think it was you that pointed out we had some limbs that were blocking some signs.
Yeah.
So since there really hadn't been a whole lot of changes on this project, I went ahead and took the opportunity to highlight the trees that have been trimmed. This sign was somewhat obscured by limbs, and those have been removed. And then this sign as well, you can see down through here, a lot of these limbs were taken off these locust trees so that you could easily see this wayfinding sign there. So that's been complete, looks a lot better.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
These are both new signs, correct? With the
They are.
Yes. Yeah.
It just seems like they would have packed them when they went in.
Appreciate
I don't
you letting
disagree with
us know.
that.
Yeah.
Should I be kind or not?
Can I ask you a question about this sign? Obviously, somebody said, hey, we'd like a sign as part of this project for Monticello Ashland. Is there another wayfinding sign farther down?
There is.
Tells you to
There
turn.
is.
Okay, I just never got up.
Down near Ivy Road, I think.
Is there?
Right in that vicinity. It's a smaller sign, so it doesn't jump out at you. And it may be obscured by some branches right now, but there is another sign down there with the exact same information.
Isn't that,
Wouldn't it be on 64?
I don't think you want to turn on Ivy, you want to turn on 64.
No, it's just, it's in that vicinity. It has the same straight ahead. It
I
doesn't.
guess I hadn't
obstruct
seen
you.
something that was near the interchange of 64, which
Something
is
that
where you
helps
want to
with it.
send traffic.
So you don't go to Scottsville,
Lynchburg,
where
yeah.
Mickey Stafford
I
is.
don't know if there's another one that.
It was
far
just
down.
curious that that one went in, and maybe there is another one I didn't know. But
The other one, the one that I'm aware of that I've seen is near the Ivy interchange, telling you to stay straight on 29.
Keep going, yes.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that tells you to turn into 64.
Not that I'm aware of, but I haven't specifically.
In that way, I have to say that.
When somebody calls us from Danville and says, how do
Right.
you get to Mickey Tower?
Still looking.
We'll tell them they missed it. I'll drive and look. I go that way a lot. But.
Yeah, I'll check to see.
It may be something that would make it a complete system.
Okay.
That's one thing I have to say about the
I'm looking
city.
on Google Earth right now.
The city-
Oh,
Well, I don't know who asked for that sign to go up, but that entity, that person, whoever that was, might know.
those are the brown, I might get the colors wrong, those are the brown historic markers.
Wayfinding.
Yeah.
Wayfinding. And Kristen, I did notice that at Best Buy, that must turn right, or whatever that sign we
Must
talked
turn
about
right.
is
I
that.
saw.
Yeah. So we can thank Joel.
Thank you. What were you going to say about the sign?
Well, I think the city wayfinding signs, I'm always amazed, there are always new ones showing
Yeah.
up. And they're very good, they're really
I
excellent.
thought you were going to say something nice. I just want to make sure you guys.
But really, I'm very happy with them. I don't even know how that ever happened, because there's a lot of money invested in them. Because they keep popping up, and they're always good.
Did the signs on 29, now that I'm open the door, did the signs on 29 onto the 250 bypass, did those overhead signs change
Yes.
somewhere?
What do you mean?
In terms of the traffic being routed to Richmond?
For 250 East?
Yeah. So I thought about it as a resident, as a city resident, and maybe you guys thought about it long and hard, but if I was going to go to Richmond and I was traveling 29 south, I might find it easier to go west on 250 to 64, just shoot straight through, rather than adding a whole bunch of traffic to our, what is a city route, essentially. I don't know if that was ever considered. Obviously, that horse out of the barn. But if that was ever considered, it's about equidistant. It's probably a mile and a half longer to go that way, but there would be 0 stoplights.
Lower traffic, I think.
And it would really lower the traffic count on what is a pretty congested road in the city of Charlottesville.
Yeah, I think correct me if I'm wrong here, Joel, when you have an exit onto a state primary, they list the next city, the next destination city. So you're already in Charlottesville. So I think the intent isn't necessarily to direct all traffic to use 250 East to go to Richmond. Of course, some people may elect to do
But that is what it says.
That is what it says.
Yeah,
yes.
that's what it says.
I mean, I agree. I'd go the same route that you'd go. I'd probably go around west. It's just easier.
And as
I just don't know if you want to sign it that way or not.
as the municipality, it might be of interest to
Yeah,
consider that
since
because
Free Bridge is so
Free Bridge
congested.
is
and that's-
chock full of traffic.
The people of Pandoms probably like it that way.
But it's just something, I mean, it's not going to solve today,
Would it be a bypass?
just,
No matter what you do, you're going to have to have
64
somebody.
is.
Well,
Yeah, let's have a gas station.
yeah.
you guys
I-
know smarter than I do.
I know the new signs were fabricated and erected. I don't know that the message on the sign.
The old one still says
Changed.
Richmond.
Yeah.
It did,
Yeah,
it did.
yeah.
The changes in the sign were dealt with the changes in the configuration of the ramp, not
Right.
That's an interesting question.
It is a good question, though. That's a good question.
I bring it up because we talked long and hard about
Yeah.
how to get to downtown Charlottesville.
Yeah.
With Rio, and at least not everybody likes the answer. There
Right.
wasn't, I don't think there was a good answer, but one way or the other. But you had to decide something. We thought about it, we discussed it, and I didn't know if anybody ever thought about that.
Not to my knowledge, other than replicating what was on that sign previously.
Okay.
In theory,
That's
you
a
could
good
say
point.
downtown Charlotte,
We're downtown.
downtown Plainville.
Okay, so just going over the lane closures this week, there were some westbound shoulder closures during the daytime this week on 250. I don't believe there are any more lane closures planned. That was actually just a shoulder closure though. But over the next 2 weeks, we'll continue and complete the punch list items. Sidewalk repairs, pedestrian ramps, there's some, the ADA detectable domes, and some of those little concrete inserts or cracks, we'll have to replace those. Paving, guardrail repairs, general concrete repairs, tree removal, which much of that has been done, and then project completion by July 2. which is the schedule that we've received from the contractor.
Yeah.
And so no anticipated lane closures associated with that work.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
In the median, starting at hydraulic, or when you get into the city, you have green strips all the way to Angus Road. Do I remember correctly that there's a landscaping plan for that, or am I making that one up?
There is, but it's
Okay.
going to be done after the completion of that project, so it's separated out.
Okay.
VDOT
Right.
is going to do that
With somebody else?
Yes.
with a different contractor, a landscaping contractor.
Okay.
And there's a landscape plan already has been, correct me if I'm wrong, this landscape plan has already been worked out and coordinated with the city.
I thought so, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
And part of that dealt with the fact that we didn't want to plant a bunch of trees in the middle of
Yeah,
June
yeah,
and
I
July.
understand. I just wanted
Yeah.
to follow up on that, make sure I
Yeah.
didn't dream it up.
No.
No, you
We
didn't.
had a
You're right.
plan.
Any other questions on 29-250 interchange? Okay. So we'll move on to RIO. You can see there's a whole long list of items here. Progress this week, even with the rain, was very good. They were out there working this morning in the driving rain safely, but I was very happy to see that. So this week, repair of a CenturyLink vault. This is kind of like that punch list item. They backed into a manhole that was owned by CenturyLink with the excavator and damaged it, have to repair that. They have a repair for Stormwater Facility 6. This is the one right there at the Albemarle Square entrance. They damaged one of those pipes putting it in, so they have to do a repair band on that. Grade for curb cut ramps, as well as curb and gutter and sidewalk in the northeast quadrant, and quite honestly, all of the quadrants. So now that the main part of the excavation for that project is complete, those crews are going to other locations. They're going to the outside to start back on the sidewalks and the ped lighting and all those different areas, and then some of them are going back up to 29 widening. So we're starting to see a lot more of that work. In fact, I meant to mention earlier in some of those calls that we received about the barrels, that new island on the east side of 29 on RIO was placed night before last. So those barrels are out of there now. That new island's there. Stamped concrete looks good, darker gray color. So if you happen to drive by, you might take a look at it. Just general grading on the perimeter of the projects. I know that they've finished up the grading there above the retaining wall at Fashion Square, some other areas north near the intersection with RIO. Installing bridge drainage. So we have some inlets just off the bridge that carry water from the bridge into our storm sewer system. We're installing this week. Repair to Stormwater Facility 4, which is the one in front of Virginia National Bank underneath the roadway. Retaining parapet and barrier wall. That's their main focus right now. As of today, they've completed 24 of the 65 walls, so they're making very good progress on that. The final deck pour was done this week. So all 5 sections of the deck have been poured now.
Hey, Dave, just so that nobody listening might be confused, there's not 65 walls. There's
65 sections, individual sections of wall.
That
So
make up
they have it
walls.
broken down into 32-foot wide sections. So each one is done in 32-foot sections. Thank you. It sounds right in my head.
No, I know. It sounds right in my head too.
Continuing with the stamped concrete sidewalk installations, they've done a lot of the quadrants now, and they've stamped those in that brick pattern and stained them and sealed them. I think they look great. Installing the signal uprights and mast arms at 29th Place, they had already done RIO, so most of those are up. I think those also look very good. The powder coated black finish on them, they actually already have the signal heads up there. They are moving on to installing the pedestrian lighting. So the lighting that we worked on in this group to have installed is going in starting this week and into next week. Signal loops at 29th Place, those were cut in yesterday, completing the CenturyLink tie-ins. This is just a very short stretch where we're putting some conduit into a manhole. CenturyLink has to actually put it into the manhole because they own the manhole. Installing remaining pedestrian light pole foundations. There are At the time I said 3, I think there's only 1 remaining now. And installing the pedestrian signals and pulling the conductor wire. So lane closures this week, our typical phase 2 traffic closure remains. That's the crossover closure. And then in addition to that, at night between 9 and 6, as long as they don't go past 6, we have generally 1 or 2 lanes closed depending on the direction. 1 lane closed southbound, sometimes 2 lanes closed northbound. So here's a picture that was taken earlier this week looking north, standing on top of the bridge. And you can see this wall section was completed. This is the formwork for the next wall. So on this side, they're moving away from the bridge. They've got a couple completed down here. There's another one completed there. The barrier walls on the approaches are all completed. You can see down here, this is all at subgrade. So now they have to build up the stone and asphalt. So there's really no more digging in here. And then looking south, we see the same thing. We see completed walls. They're working away from the bridge at the moment. They actually poured the first wall underneath the bridge last night, or yesterday, during the day yesterday. So they haven't pulled the form off of it yet, but that's a little trickier application and getting the concrete in there than it is on these where they have the pump truck that comes up and just pumps directly into the top. So looking very good, moving very quickly, still ahead of schedule, probably even more ahead of schedule than they were last week. So still staying on that trend of moving quickly. So this is a little bit better shot of what that wall pattern looks like. Obviously this wall is not stained yet, but you can see the same pattern here, same form liner that was used for the walls at 29250 and generally matching McIntyre interchange. So over the next 2 weeks, they will complete the stormwater facility repair on DMP 6. Next week, they'll lower a gas service line at Jefferson Coin. It's actually a minor operation, but I went ahead and included it on this list. Grade for the curb and gutter and sidewalks, and complete the repair on stormwater facility 4. More retaining walls, parapet walls, barrier walls on the road, parapet walls on the bridge. That's the difference between the two. They're going to look almost identical, but just distinguishing between them. Pedestrian lighting, installing the loops, and also the traffic loops. They've already cut the holes for them, but installing the loops there at 29th Place in Rio so that they're ready to go when the intersection opens back up. Installing the ground-mounted signs, cameras and ITS equipment, and wiring the signal cabinet for the Rio signal. They're actually doing that on the test bench at the office so that they can get it working exactly as they want, so when they go out there and put it in place, they know it's going to work when they turn it on, so it doesn't hold them up with their completion of the project or opening it back up the interim milestone. And then what we anticipate for lane closures is just like what we've had every other week, the phase 2 traffic closure, and then also the additional closures at night. Yes, Kristen.
Has there been any issue with pedestrians sort of randomly crossing the 29 out away from crosswalks, or find their way across?
There's been a few instances that I've seen personally that not as much crossing. It's just amazing what people are willing to do. I know Lou and I were out there the other night, and a gentleman ran across the road and stood there by the barrier wall to ask us a question. We're trying to get him to get back on the sidewalk, and but I don't know as far as people trying to cross. They seem to be going down towards the ends of the projects, past the barrier wall, and crossing there, which is kind of similar to what they were doing before. They weren't crossing at the intersections, they're crossing kind of mid-block.
It's safer that way.
It
If you
is.
ever have done it yourself, and I've done it a few times.
Nobody's
Much
turning,
safer.
there's only one direction.
Well, you get to the median and then you watch, again, you have to stop the median, but it's the safest way. You know what's coming. Or
Yeah, we've seen a bit of that. It's one of the reasons why we're looking to open this as fast as we can, because we'll have that pedestrian crossing area there. It's just, it makes me nervous every time I see it, and I'm sure I don't see all the occasions that it's happening.
Well, this brings up a question I started wondering recently. with the decking having been poured, is there a chance to open up the bridge before you completed the underpass?
I mean, it's a good question and one that we've anticipated, and the answer is no. And the reason is because if we don't have the through lanes open to traffic, then we have all that traffic crammed down into 2 lanes southbound, 3 northbound, and when we open that cross traffic, we have to reactivate that signal, and then its level of service is going to go way down. So we're going to have backups north and south, whereas right now it's free flowing through there. We anticipate it would be a major traffic issue.
Pedestrian traffic across there?
We don't have any way of getting them through the barrier wall.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. And also, when we don't have the signal there, are we inviting something that may not be a safe condition until we have the pedestrian and the traffic signals?
I think by the time all of that comes together, where you could do that,
It'll be done.
we're going to be doing more than that.
Yeah. If we can wait about a month or so, we'll be there.
It's not a lengthy detour for people. It's a few hundred feet down north or south to the end of where the barrier wall
Right.
is, and that seems to be where they're crossing down around the Albemarle Square intersection and then down toward Virginia National Bank and Brookmar.
People won't walk up to the new intersection to cross that anyway.
Unless they're coming.
That's going to be a problem a year from now.
Well, if they're
Yeah.
coming
And that's
from
not,
North
that's
Side,
not a slight to
Yeah.
the project, that's just the reality of human nature. It's the same reason the person going to the gym fights for the front parking space.
Well, I know there's been a lot of
We're
other,
afraid to walk.
I know Harrisonburg did some projects recently, Bridgewater, a couple other towns where they've actually put barriers up in the median artificially to keep people from crossing the mid-block and try to channelize them in. Does it work? Sometimes. Does it create a bigger issue? Maybe.
Yeah.
Most of the residential area is on Rio, and so people will cross Rio. It's those people who are trying to get across that I think are having to do the most detouring.
We'll see.
At least we're giving them that opportunity to have a safe crossing. It's better than nothing.
It'll certainly be better when it's done than this one, or than it was before.
Any other questions about Rio? Okay, move on to 29 widening. This week they actually finished up the wire wall at Ashwood, so they're now focusing all their attention on the second wire wall that needs to be finished before they can shift the traffic over to phase 2. They are fine grading the subgrade from Ashwood to North Hollymead, and that's what you saw today, and that's why it's starting to look a lot better instead of a bunch of piles of dirt. It's actually starting to look like a roadway. Erosion control maintenance and repairs is something that we're doing, especially today, yesterday, today, tomorrow, Saturday. We've had a lot of rain over the past couple storms. One of the last one was 2.1 inches in about a half an hour, so it's a lot of water. So they've got some maintenance work to do on that. They're working on that today. They've begun the excavation for Pond 2, installing the drainage structures to get water to Pond 2 and as well as from Pond 2, placing riprap in structure 7.5, seeding and erosion control matting. They did a lot of this yesterday, especially the erosion control matting, to get ready for the storms they knew that we're going to hit today. Placing a head wall for structure 1520, and the head wall is just one of those end sections on the inlet end of the pipe, but it's a rather large structure. Phase 3 gas main relocation and pressure testing next week, this week. So hopefully today they'll be doing the pressure testing. Early next week they'll do the burn off and all those little things they have to do to complete that work. Jack and Moore structures 11.4 and 12.20 continues. General site cleanup, that kind of also falls under the erosion control. So while they're out there doing erosion control, as they finished up work in an area, they can clean that up, get it seeded, and relocate the aerial telecommunications to the new Dominion Virginia power poles. So they're still working on that because they can't all work at the same time, and there's 3 or 4 telecommunications groups out there. So CenturyLink finished up this week, and I think Comcast is coming in next week. And this is kind of a picture of what that fine grading looks like. This is actually standing south of Ashwood Boulevard looking south, but this is what they're making that area between Ashwood and North Hollymead look like, so that they can start paving this and move the traffic from the southbound lanes over to the median area. for the Phase 2 traffic shift. This is just a picture I took of the installation of the under drain in that section. This actually will become the permanent under drain for the roadway. So that goes in now and stays in place so they can reuse it when they go back to Phase 3 and shift the traffic back over to the closer to the original location of the southbound lanes. So lane closures this week, just periodically a left or right lane closure as needed to get materials in, either northbound or southbound as needed. They're really not doing much night work out there, so we'll have a lot of lane closures in place at night. And over the next 2 weeks, they'll continue with the wire wall construction on the second wire wall further to the north. Fine grade from Ashwood to North Hollymead, erosion control, maintenance and repairs will continue. Excavation of Pond 2 will continue. Cut to fill north of North Hollymead. They'll finish up the installation of drainage for Pond 2. Asphalt paving in that median area in order to shift the traffic over. The Phase 3 gas main burn off and completion. Finishing up the Jackamore structures 11-4 and 12-20 and moving to 11-1, I think is the next location, just slightly to the south, and relocating the aerial telecommunications to the new Mini Virginia power poles. And same thing with the night closures, really not much night work, so not a lot of closures, but periodically they may have one to get a piece of equipment in or something like that. Any questions on 29 widening? Okay. We're really going to see that one accelerate now they've got those grading crews up from Ohio. Berkmar is going very well. This week they were backfilling one of the 60-inch culverts. They've got a whole series of those. A lot of them are in place. It's actually quite easy in a pickup truck to drive the entire alignment now. Installation of silt fence. So as they're opening up new areas for ponds and things like that, they have to continue that. Installing rock check dams, and more than installing rock check dams, maintaining the ones they have. These are periodic little rock checks so that they keep the water velocity down so it's not erosive. But when we have a big storm, they have to come in and clean them out, so they do a lot of that. Excavation south of the river, so they're hauling some of that dirt from the south of the river up to the north side. Placing embankment from the south of the river, so they've placed most of the embankment from Rio. Some of it they've stockpiled and they're kind of moving around, but most of that is already in place. We'll see a picture of that in a moment. More erosion control maintenance, dewatering at the pier locations this week. So they poured the final drill shaft this week, so that was, we had a lot of rain, so they had to pump all that water out. Drill and sheet rock behind Coles. They had another shot this week, and they have one scheduled for next week. Rather uneventful. Some of our guys went out to see it and came back and said it really wasn't very impressive. Completing crossing number 8. This is all the way up at the north end of the project. Powell Creek. Cross-sonic logging test. We talked about this before. It's pile integrity on Pier 2, Shaft 2 that was poured this week. And completing the CenturyLink underground relocation, which was completed this morning. And that was the last official utility, aside from betterments.
When will they wrap up their blasting?
It's probably going to continue for, I don't have the whole schedule, but probably another month,
Okay.
month and a half.
All right.
But, there may be a week, there may be 2 weeks in between shots. It's when they have the area prepped for blast, is when they come in and do it. This picture is this is almost halfway up the alignment. Actually, it's a little bit further south than that. You can see the cell towers up here. So that kind of orients you. That kind of is in line with Asheville Boulevard. It doesn't look like much in this area, but there's actually about 20 feet of fill in there now. So they've got one of the 60-inch pipes going underneath this. So this is where a lot of the dirt from Rio went. So it's already been placed. It's already been compacted. It's actually starting to look like a roadway now.
You got really good material out of Ryan, right?
We did. Yeah, it had almost a perfect clay content and sand. This is one of the pond locations that was from that last picture. It was just off to the left that they're starting to grade out. So that's the excavation they're working on now. These are just cut stakes up here they have left. So they'll actually, once they get to the bottom, they'll actually come in and just knock those out. So it's good to see them getting started on some of these permanent stormwater management ponds. And this is an interesting picture because we've been talking about drill shafts for a long time, and I mentioned earlier that the last shaft has been poured. These are the pier columns. This picture was taken actually late last week. This is Pier 1, Column 2, so you can see the rebar sticking up there from Column 3, and this is Column 1, which was poured yesterday. So these pier shafts are coming up very quickly. They had all the rebar tied. This is actually the cap that goes at the top that the beams will eventually sit on. So the piers are going to go up very quickly. They already are. So we're still anticipating next month that they're going to get the steel beams in, probably late next month, and start setting those, and then start working on the deck, and possibly have the majority of this bridge, if not the entire thing, done this year.
Just use your pointer and show them where that pier cap will end up.
Yeah, the pier cap here, once the piers are done, it sits up here on top of this. So, and then that's what your beams will sit on top of that, and then your deck on top of the beams. Making good progress there. The drill shafts were a struggle, as they usually are, but now that we're through that and actually coming up out of the ground, so it gets a lot easier then. So lane closures this week, they just have a periodic flagging operation along Iowa Mills Road when they need to get concrete trucks in. Other than that, they don't have any lane closures. Okay, over the next 2 weeks, excavate Pond 4, continue excavation south of the river, placing embankment from the south side of the river that they're trucking up, erosion control and maintenance, which is going to be as an ongoing process throughout the project. Pier forms, those were the yellow forms that we saw that are around the concrete on the piers now. Pour Pier 2, Column 1, and Pier 1, Column 3. So next week, actually, they'll do 2 more. And hopefully the week after that, they do 2 more, and they're done with the piers in less than 2 weeks. Abutment B MSE wall panels, drill and shoot rock. As I mentioned before, they've got another shot scheduled for next week, right up there near the coals, just a little bit further south than their last shot. 21-8 head wall, structures 12.5 to 12.8. These are the crossing culverts, about in the middle of the project near the cell tower site. Abutment A drainage.
So structures in this case are drainage
Pipes,
structures.
culverts, yeah, drainage structures, thank you. And sanitary sewer casing, which is actually a utility betterment that was requested by RWSA, so it's really not even part of our contract, but it is part of the work they're doing. They're doing this, they're being paid by RWSA to go ahead and do that while they're there. And anticipated lane closures are the same that we just discussed, a periodic flagging operation on Rhino Hills if they have to get a piece of equipment in or concrete drain. Okay, we just covered Hillsdale or
Al? Go ahead.
Hillsdale Drive. Had a big week with meetings, as you can see. On Monday, the stakeholders meeting took place. There were a few folks from the public at that meeting. I understand the biggest issue that was discussed was timing and sequencing of the project. The city provided the recommended sequencing that the consultant had shown and through the plans. That may not actually be what happens. The contractor can change that, but that was also discussed. The pre-construction conference was held yesterday. That was a good meeting. Lots of coordination issues amongst the city, VDOT, contractor representatives. A status with utilities was given, and with right-of-way. So that was a good meeting. Continue with relocations of utilities to the commercial buildings. I think they're about done. There's a little bit of wrap-up now. Business relocations are going well. This weekend, one of the businesses is going to relocate, and they'll be open Tuesday. Within 2 weeks after that, the second business will be relocated. So that's gone pretty well. And Dominion Virginia Power, CenturyLink, Comcast utilities do continue. So pretty good week for that. Within the next 2 weeks, the commercial building relocations will be complete. The business relocations will probably be complete. It'll be right about that time period. Utility relocations are ahead of schedule and continuing. Wednesday, a citizen information meeting will be held from 6 to 8, and that's a chance for the general public to come in and get a status of the project, make sure that they're aware that construction is about to begin. And the city will provide a lot of information at that meeting. The contract is expected to be executed within the next few days. Notice to proceed will be granted on the 30th, and shortly thereafter, within about a week, the contractor will begin construction.
And I'm pretty, well, Luke mentioned that, I think. The citizen information meeting is, I know, on the Hillsdale, the city's Hillsdale website.
Yes.
And we have a link to it.
There's a notice out in the paper.
Right.
That was sent out about that.
Has it been recommended, is there even a need to have that contractor attend some of these meetings, just like Lane Coleman has, or is it even a need?
I don't believe it's in their contract documents, but we could certainly, it is in Lane Corman's, but.
I mean, it's just been helpful when it was needed, having them here.
Well, we had Don come in once, I think.
Did we have Don come in once?
We had Don in one of these.
Yeah, I guess we did. Let's carry that forward. Let's ask about that. Yeah. Okay.
One thing I'd like to point out, Luke, can you back up one slide for me, please? So the continued utility relocations item here, I just want everybody to be aware of the status of that. What we committed to as far as relocation of utilities was completing by November 1st. Right now, barring catastrophic storms that Mini Virginia Power has to run off and fix things, it looks like into July it's probably when things are going to be finished up. So we are well ahead of schedule on that and don't anticipate any holdups on utility relocations.
Good. All right.
While we're still on Hillsdale, one thing I know with county, there are a couple of things. With the county residents, I know it would be important for them when we get the construction schedule to have some idea when the impacts along Greenbrier are going to happen. That's what they see as the most critical things as far as them. I don't know when that fits into the phasing as far as their construction pattern. And then the other question I always get asked is when will it be done?
October 27th.
Right. Yeah, it's got the same day.
Just want to make sure.
The same day, absolutely.
All right.
One thing that we do know right now, or that's been indicated to us, is I believe the sequence that was recommended in the contract documents, which they're not obligated to use, started there at Greenbrier working south, but they've already indicated that's not their plan. So that's probably going to be pushed back further in their schedule, but we've not received their schedule yet. The city has not received it. So
We'll just, from the county side, we just want to make sure those Branchland residents know
about
what's going on there.
Yeah, okay. You know, all things being equal, there was a time toward the end of last year, we talked about possibly not advertising Hillsdale until the first week of July. And I give the city and VDOT all the credit for working together and getting it advertised and getting the notice to proceed out before we thought we were going to be able to advertise it. So Hal, Dave, and I know Hal really led that effort working with Jeanette on the part of the city, and they did good work. Is
there any concern that they're going to have a hard time finding workers with all the other projects going on?
All I can say is that we've had people come by looking for work, and I haven't talked to the contractor about it. They have certain goals they have to meet, and the documents they've provided show that they're going to meet those goals. So,
they are going to be able to roll over some, I assume, some laborers from, some workers from the Best Buy ranch.
Sure.
Yeah, and they're a local company, so.
Well, that's why I
Right.
was asking, because they're not going to be bringing them in, so they're going to be having to hire locally, which is great. I just,
Back on agenda item, whatever it is, 3, I think, we talked about input questions from the public. Several were focused on the signals, and just a reminder, the Traffic Operations Center, and I know that's not the name anymore, Northwest Region Operations Center.
Traffic
Northwest-
Operations Center.
Traffic Operations
Still-
Center.
still good.
Is continuing to do that signal monitoring and has made these adjustments. Back in May at Woodbrook Drive, 5 seconds of green time were added to Woodbrook eastbound, so coming from the west eastbound, 5 seconds of green time were added. 1 second of green time was added to Woodbrook west. And Dave, tell everybody what the lead lag sequence is.
When you pull up to a signal and you say, is my direction, the left turn, going to get the green first, or the one on the other side? It has to do with which one of those gets the green first, which one leads and which one lags. And sometimes that has to do with, you'll have a left turn that's green and the through movement is green as well. That's the configuration
lefts are
there
going.
at Woodbrook. So I think they had it set up, they actually switched it for eastbound to be the leading one, because there's a lot of traffic coming out of Rio Hill Shopping Center, and also people now, more people are using Berkmar to Woodbrook, so it gives them first priority to get out. And it actually seems to be working very well since we've made those changes.
At Fashion Square, back last week, 4 seconds were added, 4 seconds of green time were added exiting Fashion Square for the weekends only. VDOT Dave has had some meetings with Fashion Square, and in consultation with the folks at the Traffic Operations Center, I can tell you that rather than considering adding it, a couple hours before the meeting, earlier this morning, 4 seconds of green time were added to the left turn from 29 southbound to Fashion Square. And yeah, that's been used a lot for an informal detour, but Dave sat down with Fashion Square and they talked about this and the possible ramifications of adding that 4 seconds and more traffic going that way. All that's square with everybody. So that change got made earlier this morning. And for those of you that went out to Stanton when we took that little trip to the Traffic Operations Center, one of the guys you all met, Grant Sanders, is able to do all of that work and make those changes into configuration, punch a button, and send it out to the signal controllers from there. So those are the changes that have been made. The monitoring of the traffic signals continues and will continue. There's no other planned tweaks on the books at the moment. That doesn't mean we won't make any, but we're not going to make any unless the traffic ops folks have some time to take a look at it and see what other ramifications it may have. So I think the observations we got from people were good ones, particularly up at Woodbrook. Well, not particularly at Woodbrook, all of them were good observations, and all the changes that have been made with the understanding that where green time is added, something else is happening in the perpendicular direction, and that's what those guys are concerned about and want to take a good look at before making a change. That's where we are. Dave mentioned that Rio is almost getting completed at a faster clip than he can report a % complete. So I asked him to take a look at these interim milestones. These are those milestones that have to be met on or before September the 2nd in order to really meet the terms of the contract. And this is the 3rd week of June, and as you see, looking down the 3rd week of June, some are pretty substantially underway. Stormwater management systems at 4th item down, 80% done. Drainage systems, which those two certainly go together, are 75% done. Barrier walls complete, I'd say probably more than 35% now. The bridge, 65% complete. These other things are, at least I think, intuitively obvious, are things that you don't do to the end. Not ready to pave anything just yet. But making good progress down with signing. Got a good jump on that. A good jump on the signals. The lighting under the bridge is just about all done. If not done by now, it's probably done. And again, you come down to these items, which are items that aren't going to happen until we get to the end anyway. And what we'll do with each meeting, we'll just move this over into the week we are and see where we stand. Now you might say, well, gee, why don't we have a schedule for these? Because I'll be quite honest with you, we don't exactly know what it is. I can pretty well tell you that nobody at Lane Corman has the month of September on their schedule, and I'm still putting my money on before the beginning of August, but and that's what I hope they do. That would be great. So we'll keep.
There's this item, the cert from the bottom up, called attenuators.
Attenuators?
I have no clue what that is. What was that?
You're talking about the barrier attenuators.
Yeah, the crash cushions.
You know, before a barrier, you'll see a little triangle.
Attenuate the speed of your car as you ram it.
Yes, it attenuates the speed of your moving body as your car is coming to a stop. Yeah.
Bumpers.
I thought it was something hydraulic or
Yeah. Electronic at least.
something, more
It's not that
fancy.
fancy.
No,
Yeah.
It's a big spring.
Yeah. So we're moving at a real good clip.
And I assume the lighting on the bridge is being used for the construction.
It is.
That's why they expedited that one. Yeah, makes sense.
It's something to see, and I don't. How did your media tour go, Lou, Dave?
Very well.
As far as was it in the way any, Chris? I know you did it at that 6 to 8 period.
I didn't hear of any issue with it about Blue.
We had,
Did it upset the Lane Corman guys that you were in there? Is what I'm
No.
We
we
had
had five people.
5 people.
And, during that shift change, the first week or two of work, you would go in there and shift change and be quiet. Now you go in there during shift change, and there's still people working. The folks that are in there tying steel, what we're seeing is they're working an extra hour to get everything ready for the night crew. And in some operations, the night crew's coming in an extra hour early to get a jump start on things. So there's still operations going on when we went in there, but they're in isolated areas where we can navigate through. It wasn't a hindrance at all.
And most importantly, there's not a lot of heavy equipment, dump trucks or concrete trucks and things moving through there.
I don't know if anybody would be interested in asking this in front of Dave. It's probably a little unfair. I don't know if anybody would be interested in a hard hat walkthrough.
Go ahead, break our hearts and say no.
From one end to the other. If we did it, but we'd have to do it between that 6 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Period.
Or 6
Can't
a.m.
get-
to 8 a.m.
Or what? Oh, yeah. Or 6, 8 a.m. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Either 6 to 8 p.m. or 6 to 8 a.m.
4 to 6 a.m.
But would a few of you be interested in doing that? Can we set that up? I'll tell you, I'd like to see you do it. All right, we're going to talk about that.
Possible to do some sort of, like, what nights are out before setting the date? 'Cause 6 to 8 is often meetings, but sometimes not.
What nights are out?
Like just offer, like, asking those who want to go on a tour what nights they can't go.
Like council meeting.
Oh, sure, yeah. Like stay away from Tuesdays?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
from that particular Tuesday.
Yeah. No, let us just chat it over a little bit, and then we'll do it. If you have the chance to do it, it's it's a lot more fun when there's a whole lot going on, but that's when we don't want to do it, and we kind of got past that.
Yeah, that may be a breach of contract.
Well, we promised we'd stay out of people's
That's what I
way,
mean.
but and done a good job of that.
I'll be honest with you, those guys and gals that are working in there on a daily basis, they're kind of excited when people come to see them.
Oh yeah, they're very proud of what they're proud of what they're doing.
Yeah.
But their bosses are very happy for us to stay out of there. So
You don't want anything to slow it down.
no.
They get excited when they get on the night.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll
the media were probably more excited than we'll be.
Yeah.
I'll look at the camera.
Oh, no, I'll tell you what, we opened, just to digress for a minute, we opened one lane of a brand-new tunnel, immersed tube tunnel, between Norfolk and Portsmouth. This is a $2.1 billion project. And we opened one lane, just one lane of this new 2-lane tunnel on Friday, and it was pretty low key. We didn't want to have a big media event just for one lane. The media needed to get in there because they need to report the change in traffic patterns. But earlier in the day, you have 100 employees who are very proud of opening this immersed tube tunnel, which is a big deal. Technically alone, this tunnel is very advanced, not just in Virginia, but in the U.S. There was some discussion that, well, we really don't want this to be political, so we're not going to ask the mayors, because one of the mayors has had a lot of not the best things to say about this project that you pay to drive through. Well, I said, look, you can call the mayor, I'm going to call the mayors. The mayors we're going to invite them. The mayor, who had some philosophical issues with tolling, not the project, his questions were incredibly detailed. His level of interest in the operations inside this facility, once he got inside of it, were amazing. And these weren't BS questions. It was, what's this chrome mat on the wall? How's it protect fire protection? Why is it coated and the ceiling isn't? The jet fans in there and the whole operation of the jet fans to longitudinally ventilate this facility. He was just all in this, and when you get inside one of these projects, it's a big kick for me, and I think it is for most people. So we'll talk. I'll circle back to you guys. We'll get some dates that are excluded and see if we can make that work. All right, how much money is Dave spending? The answer is a lot. Since May, we've paid another $5 million, Lane Coleman's invoiced.
It's been paid.
Paid. Dave's paying. Chris, tell him the check's in the mail. Another 5.1 million. No changes in change orders or exposure. Those levels are still out there, so the remaining contract value is knocked off another 5.1. I'm going to let John Lynch do a little of the talking here on 29,250, because you'll see an amount invoiced that's more than the contract value, which leaves us in a negative situation on contract value, and we have a new estimate, though, for total anticipated expenditures at completion, which is still within our budget. And John, if you would.
Well, they had a few challenges in getting the current invoice for this month, which reflects the 12,103, which was accurate at the time. That's about within about 100,000. That's the total project that they're expecting. So they were doing some work for the city that was mixed up in some of this stuff. So
and that also includes some quantity overruns?
Yeah, the quantity overruns on asphalt and some other things. So they're still projecting a balance of about 100,000 at the end, under budget.
Okay. Quantity overruns in some, depending on how the contract's written, you write a contract and say, we're going to use 5 of something. And you establish a price for that 5. And the contractor gets in and doing the work and says, wow, you know, if we only deliver 5 of these, you're going to be 3 short. So the contract allows for delivering a larger quantity at that unit price, and that can cause some overruns.
Those numbers are not net of any financial penalty there might be that arises out of delay, right?
No.
So that would be in addition.
Thank you, John. Signals, no changes in any of those. And what I plugged in Hillsdale was the bid that was received from Fielder's Choice, $11,451,000. It was actually $491.80. So that's the bid price. As the contract gets executed and signed, we'll start filling this out and track it like everything else. So that did change our total expected contract value, including that bid price. Invoiced about $71 million has been invoiced in total on the project. That's 6.6 million, 6.7 million more than we had a month ago. And I took these numbers out because they don't make any sense now until we get this filled in on the change from May. So we're still looking at 147 million total for those projects against a 6-year planned construction allocation of 185 million. And just to answer the question that's always asked, no, that doesn't mean that you get $40 million to spend on.
You don't say keep the change.
On anything else. No, keep the change, unfortunately. But, we'll still report this. We'll continue to report it monthly after the second meeting.
That doesn't include any allowance in that 6-year. Wasn't it in the 6-year for the engineering for hydraulic?
That does not include, this does not include that. These are just the construction numbers. Yeah. There was 10 million for hydraulic and 10 for, what do we end up calling it? Hillsdale South or something.
The train is also part of the project, but it's.
The the 25 million for the second train set is not in there. These are just the.
Is that house?
Yeah.
25 million?
For a second train set and all the work that. For the track.
For being out. For the track.
Well, the panel.
No, not.
The first panel recommended contributing $5 million.
Yes, that's the number that I think was publicly talked about.
The secretary, when it went to the CTB, added in the full cost of the second train set and another $20 million, $25 million.
But that took it over the cost of, it raised the cost of the entire project. It wasn't taking it away from something else.
No, it didn't take it away from anything else. No, it didn't take it away from anything. it did not take it away from anything else.
It added money. Right, exactly.
25 million, that'd come from somewhere.
Westbury.
Yeah.
Nothing's gonna come.
But this number, Pete, is just the dollars allocated to construction in the 6-year plan for these projects.
I just think there's two other things, or pieces of this whole process.
Yeah, they are, but there's nothing for us to track against them right now. Because they're not, I think that's in fiscal year 18. 19, fiscal year 19 is where those are programmed. Yeah, July 2018 is when you could start expending. But yeah.
So the
that
question
money's
that I guess somebody's going to ask at some point is, none of those dollars can be reallocated to the hydraulic construction? If this comes in substantially under budget, and if there's something else in the 6-year plan, because the hydraulic...
Any money available in the 6-year plan, any money available from any completed project can be allocated to any other project in the 6-year plan. So let's say this finishes, for round numbers, $40 million under budget. That $40 million can be allocated anywhere in the 6-year plan, or reallocated, I guess.
You could go to Northern Virginia.
Could go to Bristol, Grundy, Hampton Roads.
And so that would then be under, what is it? What's the new?
Smart scale.
Smart scale, the prioritization.
What's it called now, the smart scale?
Smart scale.
Summit 2?
House Bill 2 kind of lost a little flavor with our partners to the south there,
Yes.
so.
But that would then fall into that?
Yes. Yes.
So
that-
it'll likely be a while before the actual construction of hydraulic gets into the 6-year plan.
If it got into the 6-year plan. Yeah, I mean, it's in the 6-year plan now for preliminary engineering only, 10 million on each one of those projects.
Well, eventually it's gonna get in there, else why spend the 10 million?
Well, I think that question was asked.
That cannot be a presumption. That's at the pleasure of the Commonwealth Transportation Board.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, why spend the 10 million if you're not prepared to?
Maybe no one ever will. I mean, that it's programmed for fiscal year 19. It came out of a recommendation of the first panel.
Can we do all this again in 19?
We can do it all again in 19. Yeah. It doesn't mean it won't be. You know, I'm not saying it doesn't mean it won't be. But that's to be allocated by the Commonwealth Transportation Board.
So there's nothing inside of what we're talking about that allows it to just kind of slide in. It has to go through its own process.
So
Absolutely.
other
It has to be
I just
through
want
its
to know
own
my
process.
That's all right.
It has to be through its own process and go through that prioritization process. And effective July 1, this July 1, members appointed to the Commonwealth Transportation Board can only be removed for cause. There no longer can be wholesale removed at the will and pleasure of governor. So they're still appointed for 6-year terms, and
So they're half as political. Still
but
political.
still appointed. Yeah, they're still appointed. Still
Not
appointed.
political.
Right, still appointed, and the commissioner of highways becomes an ex officio member rather than the vice chairman of the CTB. So the vice chairman of the CTB will be one of the CTB members. If I remember right, I think it's still the same from when I was there. As the vice chairman meant that you could bang the gavel in the absence of the chairman, and if there was a tie, you got to vote. So, but the vice chairman will be a member of the CTB, and they can only be removed for cause. All right. Anything else on the budget? Any new, Henry, new business? Chris?
No, thanks.
Kristen?
Good.
Mark?
All good.
Morgan? All right, I think our next meeting is July the 7th. Is that right, Dave? July the 7th. All right. All right. Thank you much. Appreciate it.